The Indiana Fever front office is about to do another roster overhaul for the 2026 WNBA season.
The Indiana Fever just dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. Hours after being eliminated, the team made a stunning move that sent shockwaves through the entire WNBA, releasing 8 players in one night. Fans were left speechless, insiders scrambling, and even rival coaches caught off guard. What could possibly drive a franchise to clean house this fast? Was this a calculated rebuild or a desperate reaction to another disappointing season?
I believe a lot of players will be exiting the building like Elvis, bruh. They got to get the hell out of Dodge. Now, I'm telling you right now, I believe more than half of this team is going to leave. I just got to keep it real. A lot of players is going to leave. I believe a few big names is probably going to leave. And more importantly, we need to get the ball back to Caitlyn.
One thing's for sure, this isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about egos, power struggles, and the battle to build a team around Caitlyn Clark before it's too late. As the dust settles, one question hangs in the air. Who stays, who goes, and what does this mean for the Fever's future? Because the real story behind these 8 cuts is far deeper than anyone expected, and it starts right here.
No one predicted them to go this far, especially without Caitlyn Clark. Now, granted, they was projected to be, final contenders, but that was with the roster that they had. Obviously, they had a whole nother roster, and like I keep telling you, momentum was the key.
When the final buzzer sounded, it wasn't just the end of the Fever's playoff hopes, it was the end of an era. Inside that locker room, you could feel the tension thick in the air. Players who had spent the entire season grinding through injuries, rotations, and locker room drama suddenly realized that their futures in Indiana were hanging by a thread. The coaching staff stayed quiet, the mood was heavy, and whispers started spreading before anyone even left the building.
We all know Stephanie White was running a whole lot of sets, bro. Whole lot of sets, whole lot of off-ball things, whole lot of things that Caitlyn Clark really don't like to do, bro. Let's just be honest. Caitlyn Clark is being the biggest trooper for this damn basketball team. But I think, just like I stated before, go back to the basics.
Something big was about to happen. Sources close to the team say the decision to release 8 players was not made overnight. This move had been brewing for weeks behind closed doors. Rumors of internal disagreements between the front office and head coach Stephanie White had been circulating for months, especially regarding playing time and team chemistry. The Fever's late-season collapse exposed every weakness, from poor rotations to visible frustration between veterans and rookies.
Granted, they was running this off-ball and doing all these different experiments. Without momentum, I don't believe they would have made it as far. I believe they was playing meaningful basketball just due to the amount of injuries that the team took, and it kind of motivated them. They said it in their exit interview. The bench power pretty much motivated them and gave them the energy they need to prolong and get through a bunch of them long stretches in the series.
By the time the elimination came, management had already made up its mind. The Fever had invested everything into Caitlyn Clark, the league's biggest star and marketing powerhouse. But as the season dragged on, fans started asking why the team wasn't built around her strengths. Analysts pointed out that the offense had drifted away from the fast, free-flowing system that made Clark a college legend. Instead, it became a rigid structure full of forced sets, slow ball movement, and mismatched lineups.
Let's listen to what Caitlyn Clark had to say years ago.
That's a huge reason why I came here, and that's what she preached to me in the recruiting process. You're going to have the ball in your hands a lot, and I think a lot of my final schools kind of had that same look, but I think the read and react offense that we run was super important for myself. You're making basketball reads. It's not a set. You're not being told what to do every single time you come down the floor. You're just playing the game you love.
Now, y'all heard that, right?
Clark did her best to adjust, but the lack of rhythm was obvious. By the final games, she looked exhausted, carrying too much of the load, while trying to fit into a system that didn't fit her. And then came the injuries. One by one, key players went down, and the Fever's depth was exposed.
Now, the style of play, and this is what I've been saying, we need to go back to the basics. And the basic is this style of play with Caitlyn Clark, giving her the ball. Let her play freely, openly. Let her do what she do. No calling different sets going up the court. No doing none of this. Put players around Caitlyn with that know how to obviously read sets, know their responsibility, because Caitlyn Clark said it herself.
The front office blamed the coaching decisions, while players pointed fingers at conditioning. When the losses piled up, the message was clear. Something had to change, and fast. The Fever had no intention of repeating another year of underachievement with one of the most hyped players in basketball history on their roster. So, after the elimination, calls were made before sunrise. Agents were notified. Lockers were cleared. 8 players were told they would not return.
Let me see. Bree Hall gone. Shea Petty gone. Natasha Howard gone. Bree Turner gone. Damster's gone. That's 5. Ariel Powers, Sydney Colson. Hold on. Sydney Colson. And Damster's 8. Yep. I believe they lose 8 players. This is just my prediction.
The move was ruthless, but it sent a message. The Fever were done settling for mediocrity. This was about building a team that could actually win around Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Not just survive the season, but as fans celebrated the promise of a rebuild. Others saw a different story, one of power, pressure, and control, because this wasn't just a roster shakeup. It was a signal that the Fever front office had reached its breaking point. And if you think the cut stopped there, wait until you see who might be next on the chopping block. The aftermath of the roster purge made one thing crystal clear. The Fever are finally ready to build around Caitlyn Clark the way she was meant to play. For months, fans had been begging to let Caitlyn be Caitlyn. No more overcomplicated sets. No more forcing her off the ball. What made her a generational star at Iowa wasn't just her scoring, it was her freedom, her rhythm, and her command of the floor. When she played with instinct, teammates fed off her energy. When that freedom was stripped away, so was the team's soul. Inside the Fever organization, several voices had been pushing to bring back that same redandriac defense Clark thrived in during her college days. Even former Iowa coach Lisa Bluder's system was referenced in recent meetings as an example of how to maximize Clark's talent. In that system, she wasn't just a scorer, she was a creator, a conductor, the heartbeat of the offense. With the roster thinning and more cap space opening up, this could finally become her team in every sense. Sources close to the front office hinted that this offseason will prioritize signing players who fit that SYSTEM high-Q shooters, floor spacers, and teammates who can anticipate Caitlyn's reads instead of waiting for set plays. The goal? To recreate that Iowan steroids style of basketball that lets Clark dictate tempo and keep defenses constantly guessing. One insider even joked, "If you're not ready to shoot, cut or move. Don't bother showing up to training camp." Caitlyn herself has been patient, but her frustration has been visible. During press conferences, she carefully chose her words, but hinted at wanting a more fluid offense. Fans remember her saying she wanted to just play basketball again. A quiet but powerful message about how suffocating the structured system had become. Behind that calm composure was a competitor tired of limits. For Fever fans, this shift is more than strategy, it's identity. The team knows that when Clark is unleashed, everything changes. The energy in the arena, the chemistry on the court, even how opposing teams defend. This rebuild isn't just about cutting players, it's about cutting the excuses. It's about aligning everything, coaching, recruiting, and rotations, with the player who single-handedly revitalized the WNBA's fan base. And if the Fever truly commit to that, they could be unstoppable. But that depends on one thing, whether Stephanie White and the coaching staff can adapt. Because the same coach who leaned on rigid playbooks now faces a defining moment. Either she evolves with Caitlyn's game, or she becomes the next name on the exit list. The front office has made their move. Now the question is, will the coach follow the vision or become its biggest obstacle? As the dust settled from the mass roster cut, one name kept circulating behind the scenes: head coach Stephanie White. Once praised for steadying a young team, she now finds herself at the center of growing tension. Insiders say her relationship with the front office has quietly deteriorated. And the reason is simple: her system doesn't match the direction the Fever want to take. White's structured play-by-play offense worked for a time, but with Caitlyn Clark at the helm, it began to feel outdated. Fans saw it, analysts pointed it out, and now the front office has made it clear. Change is coming whether she likes it or not. White's supporters argue she was dealt a difficult hand. Multiple injuries, shifting rotations, and a roster full of players still learning to mesh around a superstar made consistency almost impossible. But her critics say she refused to adapt. stubbornly clinging to a rigid system that stifled creativity and slowed the team down. Too often, the offense looked predictable, endless pick-and-rolls and isolation plays that forced Clark to operate within boundaries instead of instincts. For a player who thrives on improvisation, it was a slow death. The breaking point reportedly came late in the season when internal meetings turned heated. Front office executives wanted a more open offense centered around Clark's decision-making. White, meanwhile, defended her approach, saying the team wasn't ready for that kind of freedom. The disagreement grew into a quiet power struggle that defined the Fever's final stretch of games. After their playoff elimination, one source claimed that management viewed the defeat as proof that White's style couldn't get them over the hump. Players noticed the divide too. Some veterans sided with the coach, believing structure was necessary to maintain order. Others privately voiced frustration, saying the offense felt micromanaged and robotic. Caitlyn Clark, ever the professional, kept her opinions measured in public. But her body language told a different story. You could see it on the court, the hesitation, the glances toward the bench, the moments where her natural flow was replaced by hesitation. It was the look of a player holding back now. With 8 players gone, the spotlight turns fully on Stephanie White. Her future is uncertain, and the whispers about a potential replacement are growing louder. The Fever's front office has reportedly begun evaluating alternative coaching candidates who could bring in a more modern offensive identity, one that mirrors Clark's college success. Whether White gets one more season or not may depend entirely on how willing she is to change, because at this point, the message from management couldn't be clearer. This franchise belongs to Caitlyn Clark, and if the head coach can't build around her, the next announcement from Indiana might not be about a player leaving. It could be about Stephanie White packing her bags next. When the news dropped that the Fever had released 8 players, social media erupted. Fans scrambled to make sense of it. Who stayed, who left, and why so many at once? Within hours, names started surfacing, and the pattern became clear. This wasn't random. It was a statement. Every player let go represented a shift in philosophy, a message that the Fever were done with mediocrity and half-hearted performances. According to reports, the cuts began with bench players who failed to make consistent impacts. Bree Hall, Shea Petty, and Damiris Duntis were among the first to go. While all had shown flashes of skill, injuries and inconsistency plagued their seasons. The front office wanted reliability, not potential. Next came Natasha Howard, the biggest name on the list. Despite her experience and championship pedigree, insiders say Howard's contract demands and uneven play sealed her fate. She wanted top dollar. But the Fever weren't willing to invest that kind of money in a system now built around Clark and Boston. Then came the shockers, Lexi Hull and Sydney Colson. Hull was a fan favorite and defensive anchor, but the team couldn't justify her salary with declining production and injury concerns. Colson's release, meanwhile, stirred online debate. The veteran guard brought leadership and humor to the locker room, but the front office wanted youth, speed, and versatility. Her 2 points per game simply didn't justify another year on the roster. Ariel Power's departure was perhaps the most predictable. She struggled to find her role, and her fit alongside Caitlyn Clark never quite clicked. The final names, Kadisha Kay Stokes, and Chloe Bibby, were developmental pieces the team still liked, but when you're reshaping an entire roster, sentiment takes a backseat to vision. 8 gone. Just like that, the move freed significant cap space, giving the Fever flexibility they haven't had in years. Fans immediately began speculating who could replace them: shooters, defenders, or veterans who could complement Clark's tempo. But beyond the excitement, there was a somber undertone. These weren't just cuts. They were casualties of a larger rebuild that demanded total buy-in to a new identity. Each player's exit carried its own story. Some will find homes elsewhere. Others may not return to the league at all. It's a brutal reality of professional basketball, one that reminds everyone this isn't college ball anymore. The Fever are moving fast, and anyone not keeping pace will be left behind. Still, there's one lingering question among fans. Did the front office move too quickly? 8 players in one sweep feels drastic, almost desperate. But in the eyes of management, this was necessary surgery, painful but essential. They're betting that by cutting out the old system, they can rebuild something better. And if it works, this mass exodus might be remembered as the night Indiana Fever finally grew up. But if it doesn't, this bold gamble could haunt them for years. With 8 players gone, the balance of power inside the Fever locker room has completely changed. For the first time since Caitlyn Clark arrived, the dynamic feels unmistakably centered around her. And not just as a scorer, but as the franchise cornerstone. The veterans who once controlled the tempo, the tone, and even the locker room hierarchy are mostly gone. What's left is a team built to follow Clark's lead. Kelsey Mitchell now stands as one of the few holdovers with both seniority and respect. After years of carrying the franchise through losing seasons, she's proven her loyalty and grit. Her chemistry with Clark grew noticeably toward the end of the season, especially when both began to find rhythm sharing the backcourt. Insiders say the front office views Mitchell as an anchor, a veteran presence who can both mentor and adapt to a faster, more fluid offensive system. She's expected to play a critical role in guiding the young core forward. Then there's Aaliyah Boston, the quiet enforcer. Boston's consistency, both on and off the court, made her untouchable during the roster overhaul. Together with Clark, she forms the foundation of the franchise's future. The front office reportedly sees them as the dual faces of Indiana. Clark the spark, Boston the steady force. That's why almost every personnel move is now designed to enhance their partnership, surrounding them with shooters, screen setters, and reliable defenders who fit their pace. But not everyone is thrilled about this new order. Some remaining players have quietly expressed concern that the team's identity is being swallowed entirely by Clark's spotlight. Others question whether management is putting too much pressure on one player too soon. Caitlyn's popularity has transformed the Fever from a struggling small-market team into one of the league's biggest draws overnight, and that comes with its own set of challenges. Every game, every comment, every decision is magnified. Still, the message from the top is firm. This is Caitlyn's team now. Front office executives have reportedly held meetings, stressing alignment, meaning coaches, players, and staff must operate in unison with the new vision. One source described it as a reset, not a rebuild. In other words, anyone who doesn't buy into this direction won't last long. Inside practice, there's already a noticeable difference. The energy feels lighter, the pace quicker, and the offense more fluid. Teammates are learning to move off Clark's instincts rather than waiting for drawn-out plays. It's messy at times, but it's progress. And for the first time in years, there's genuine belief that this team could become a contender. But power always comes with a price. The pressure on Clark, White, and the front office has never been higher. One wrong move, one losing streak, and the same fans celebrating this new direction. The Fever cleaned house, but whether they cleaned it right remains to be seen. Behind every shocking roster decision lies one thing most fans overlook: the money. The Indiana Fever's front office didn't just clear players for performance reasons. They cleared salary space. By releasing 8 contracts, the Fever freed up millions in cap room, and that changes everything heading into the 2026 season. This wasn't just about basketball. It was about building financial flexibility in a league where every dollar counts. The Fever's payroll had ballooned with mid-tier contracts that offered little return. Veterans like Natasha Howard and Ariel Powers came with experience, but also hefty price tags. Both were solid on paper, but neither elevated the team to championship level. Sources say the front office grew frustrated watching large chunks of salary eaten up by players who weren't producing consistent results. Cutting ties was harsh, but it gave Indiana room to chase higher impact talent and, more importantly, players who complement Caitlyn Clark's game. It's no secret that Clark has changed the business side of the Fever. Ticket sales skyrocketed, national TV slots increased, and merchandise sales broke records. The front office understands that as long as she's on the roster, the Fever are a premium product. That makes the stakes higher and the margin for error smaller. Ownership wants to capitalize on the momentum while it lasts. That's why the rebuild isn't just athletic, it's financial. Every contract, endorsement, and partnership moving forward has to align with that vision. Amber Cox, one of the Fever's key executives, has reportedly been the driving force behind this financial reset. Her strategy is simple: surround Clark with low-cost, high-IQ players who can stretch the floor, hit open shots, and buy into a modern offensive system. The Fever want shooters who move without the ball, veterans willing to take lesser pay for a winning culture, and younger players hungry for opportunity. Think Iowa on steroids, but within budget. And that's where the Fever might have found a new competitive edge. While other WNBA teams overspend chasing super teams, Indiana is quietly building a sustainable foundation. A roster that fits stylistically and financially. The franchise wants long-term control, not short-term hype. They want to build around Clark and Boston without being handcuffed by bad contracts or inflated salaries. Still, not everyone is applauding. Some agents have criticized the Fever for being too aggressive in clearing players, saying it sends a message that loyalty means little. But to the front office, loyalty doesn't win championships. Structure does. They're betting that disciplined spending and smarter roster construction will turn the Fever into a perennial contender rather than a one-year wonder dot at the end of the day. These moves weren't about cutting players, they were about cutting costs and excuses. The Fever's message is loud and clear. If you can't deliver value on the court or on the balance sheet, you won't be part of this new era. Because from here on out, everything in Indiana runs through two things: Caitlyn Clark and the bottom line. The moment the news hit that the Fever had released 8 players, social media exploded. Within minutes, #FeverPurge and #ClarkEra were trending across X and Instagram. Some fans called it the boldest move in franchise history, while others accused the front office of losing control. The WNBA community hasn't seen a roster overhaul this dramatic in years. And everyone had an opinion, from analysts to former players to diehard fans who'd followed the Fever through every losing season. For Caitlyn Clark's supporters, this was validation. They argued that the team had wasted too much time trying to force Clark into a system that didn't suit her. Let Her Cook became a rallying cry again, echoing across comment sections and sports talk shows. Fans flooded message boards demanding that the Fever adopt the fast-paced, free-flowing style that made Clark a household name at Iowa. They wanted the old fire back, the logo threes, the no-look passes, the fearless leadership. But not everyone agreed. Critics accused the organization of caving to star power. Some said the mass cuts were a sign that the Fever were bowing to pressure from fans and sponsors instead of trusting basketball judgment. Others pointed out that rebuilding around a single player, no matter how talented, can backfire if the chemistry doesn't work. ESPN panels debated whether the Fever were building a dynasty or making a desperate gamble. One headline even read, "Indiana's rebuild, genius or panic." Inside the locker room, reactions were mixed too. Players close to those released described the mood as somber but expected. A few shared emotional farewell posts on social media, thanking teammates and fans while hinting at frustration behind the scenes. Meanwhile, younger players expressed excitement for what's next, saying the team finally feels focused and united. It's a bittersweet balance. Loss and hope intertwined. The media circus only intensified when fans noticed Clark herself liking a few posts supporting the roster changes. That tiny digital gesture sent the internet into another frenzy, with thousands of comments dissecting what it meant. Did she approve of the moves? Was she finally taking ownership of the team's direction, whether intentional or not? It fed the narrative that Clark is now the face and the force behind Indiana's transformation. TV networks wasted no time jumping on the story. Talk shows debated how this move would reshape the WNBA's power dynamics, especially as the league pushes for expansion and higher ratings. Suddenly, Indiana, once a struggling franchise, was dominating headlines and generating record online engagement. Love it or hate it, the Fever became the league's most talked about team overnight. And through all the chaos, one thing is undeniable: this roster purge has reignited fan interest in a way the league desperately needed. The Fever might have lost 8 players, but they've gained something much bigger: relevance, intrigue, and the full attention of the basketball world. Now that the storm has cleared, the Indiana Fever find themselves standing at a crossroads. With 8 players gone, open cap space, and the spotlight brighter than ever. This offseason could define the next decade of the franchise. The front office has one goal: to build a team that not only fits Caitlyn Clark's game, but also restores the Fever's identity as a legitimate powerhouse. This is no longer a team searching for direction. It's a team rewriting its future. Insiders say the Fever's front office already has an aggressive plan in motion. They're targeting shooters who can thrive off Clark's passing, wings who can defend without slowing down the pace, and veteran leaders who understand how to win in hyper-sure moments. One executive described the ideal roster as fast, fearless, and fluid. The goal is clear: build a modern offense centered around Clark's instincts, and Aaliyah Boston's dominance in the paint. Expect the Fever to look completely different next season, stylistically and emotionally. The coaching staff is reportedly under pressure to adopt a more open, creative system. Practices are expected to focus on movement, spacing, and read-based reactions rather than rigid play call. It's a full cultural reset from top to bottom, and it's exactly what fans have been begging to see since Clark's arrival. But it won't be easy. Every rebuild comes with risks. Chemistry takes time, egos have to adjust, and expectations are sky high. Caitlyn Clark isn't just a player, she's the face of the league's next generation. Every shot she takes, every loss she endures, will be magnified under the national lens. If the Fever stumble out of the gate, critics will circle fast. The front office knows that patience will be thin, and the noise around the team will be deafening. Still, there's something undeniably electric about what's happening in Indiana. Fans are buying tickets again. Merchandise is flying off shelves. And for the first time in years, the Fever have something the WNBA can't manufacture: genuine anticipation. The combination of Clark's star power, Boston's foundation, and a fresh roster built for speed could turn this team into must-watch television. This isn't just a rebuild, it's a revolution. The Fever have cleared out the old guard, reshaped their vision, and placed the future squarely in the hands of their young superstar. If they succeed, this offseason purge will be remembered as the moment Indiana rose from the ashes. But if it fails, it could become a cautionary tale about what happens when a franchise bets everything on one player. Either way, the next chapter of Fever basketball won't be quiet. It'll be bold, unpredictable, and driven by a single mission: to make sure Caitlyn Clark's era delivers everything the league has been waiting for. The Indiana Fever's decision to release 8 players wasn't just a roster move, it was a statement. This is the dawn of a new era, one defined by bold decisions, sharper vision, and total commitment to building around Caitlyn Clark. The franchise is done playing it safe. They're betting everything on a system that unleashes her full potential and restores the fire that once made Indiana a contender. Fans can sense it: the shift in energy, the promise of something bigger. Whether this gamble becomes the turning point or the team's biggest risk remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the Fever have everyone watching. From the boardroom to the court, every choice now carries weight. And as a new season approaches, one message echoes through the league: the Caitlyn Clark era has officially begun in Indiana.